Hey guys, welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, doing a live video with Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast. If you don't know, we were on his show about a couple weeks ago, and I swear I got more views on his show than I do on ours combined on our whole YouTube channel. So he's doing something right, and he has a really great a YouTube channel, podcast channel called the Gentleman Style Podcast. And I want to read a little bit of his bio, and then I want to bring him in. And I would love if you guys are joining as you're seeing us. Engage in the comments, ask questions. I want to hear from you. I want this to be interactive as possible. And if you're catching us on the replay, hit that like button. Of course, hit subscribe and all that fun stuff. You know, as we're on YouTube, on Facebook, all that stuff. We want to keep growing. So help us by, I guess, the whole algorithm thing. You know, you've heard it before. The algorithm thing that everybody talks about. So a little bit about Marcus. He considers himself a serial entrepreneur with multitudes of businesses that he invests his time in, energy, and heart into. That's why I like him a lot, because we are serial entrepreneurs ourselves. He's hailing from the Caribbean in, where is it, Saint Croix. Additionally, he served 8 years in the Navy, where he honed and sharpened his skills at a young age. And again, that's why we connect very well, because as you guys know, I'm a former Marine, so I won't hold it against him that he was in the Navy, but whatever. Marines are always Marines are the cream of the crop. Navy's second, but Marines are the Department of the Navy. He's a CEO of a real estate investment firm, property management company based in Virginia. He's also started an investment firm that seeks to achieve higher returns for its investors, board members, and market partners through traditional markets and all of that fun stuff. He's also loves the whole bank on yourself concept that we do. And he's a podcast host as well, right? So this guy's doing all kinds of stuff. The Gentleman Style Podcast, dedicated to upliftment, encouragement of men and women across the globe. So with all that, I want to invite him in and welcome. Welcome, Marcus. I hope that was a great intro for you.
I didn't know who you were describing there. I was like, who is he talking about?
I know. And the Navy, I did, as I was reading the bio previously, I was like, oh, I didn't even know he was in the Navy. So again, I won't hold that against you. That the Navy is pretty much the parent of the Marine Corps. So
teamwork. We work together. That's what it's
about. Oh, so here's a funny story before I get into just asking questions. My boss, back when I was in the Marines, I was part of 1st Medical Battalion. My boss was a Navy corpsman, and my counterparts hated that my boss was a Navy corpsman, because guess what? I got to go home at 2:00 when they had to work till 5. And that happened quite regularly. And I was like, hey, sorry that you had to work for the gunny, and I have a Navy corpsman as my boss. So I loved that connection with the Department of the Navy, and I loved having my my boss being a Navy corpsman. So that was a long time ago, about 20 plus years ago.
We love liberty.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we go into the topic. And the topic is how to never retire early. Yes, we said that. We are going to talk about never retiring. Isn't that kind of ridiculous that we're going to talk about that?
It is, but it's also necessary, right? We are getting to a place. So a little about me. I'll thank you for having me on the show. This is a blessing, and I am honored to serve you and your audience in the best way possible. So thank you for having me on. That's first. Secondly, some about me is that I realized when I got out the Navy that there wasn't a lot for us. And so I realized that I had to do something financial. I had to change a lot of my financial habits about me. And so when you're in the military, you don't have to apply for a job. You don't have to worry about your 401k. You know you're going to get paid on the 1st and the 15th. When I got out, all of that had gone. Now I have to make money. I have to save. I have to invest. I have to clothe myself, dress myself, all these things that were already figured out for me. Because in the military, you got a uniform, everybody looks the same. So I had to find who I was, and I had to figure out my financial standing. And so that's why that bio is the way it is because I had to learn, because I was in for so long. And you don't have to worry about applying for a job. So I had to figure out the job market. When I joined, before I joined, you could walk into a business and apply with a paper application. When I got out, everything was online. So that had shown me that I needed to change, and I needed to.
What years were you in?
I was in from 2006 to 2014. So I had to. So those 8 years, I'd never filled out a job application. All I do is just PCS. The military tells you where to live. The military tells you how you're going to move, when to get up, when to go to bed, when to go to sleep, how you're going to dress, how you're going to cut your hair, what you're going to look like, all of that, so, do that for 8 years and then try and go into a whole new world where all that responsibility is now on you. I joined the military straight out of high school.
I was in 96 to 2000. So that tells you my age, a little bit different. And I remember going in, it was pre-internet actually, just before, and everything was changing. And so a lot changed over that time. And one of my bosses was the highest female warrant officer in the Marine Corps. So she was a big deal. She was like Whoopi Goldberg. But if you piss her off, she was nice, but you piss her off and you are screwed. But they were transitioning with the whole internet thing. And I think, man, I could just imagine going in now, how different it would be. Anyway, crazy stuff.
It is.
And then from that, you moved from the military, and now did you all of a sudden have all these, because you have a pretty big resume of a lot of different things. Did you all of a sudden get all of those things, or how did you switch into?
Great question. So no, I started when I was figuring out who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. One of the things I had to do is I had to replace my military income. And with no college education, I had to figure out how to create money and how to get into a career that paid me the same thing that I made in the military without a college education. And that was selling life insurance.
No. Hey, that sounds like what I do.
Exactly. And so life insurance requires a certification. But to me, that certification, in my opinion, bears just as much weight as the person with the bachelor's or the master's degree, because that certification is a continuous education. It doesn't just one and done. We have to continuously get recertified every 2 years in order to maintain that license and to stay on top of the latest products. So, and that I had literally a month to study for my auto, fire, life, health, and annuities test. And I did not sleep. And that was when I finally got the job and I finally got certified. I was able to pick up, I worked for Aflac, I worked for State Farm. And so I sold my behind off, but it did provide a life and it provided the income that I could survive on and live on. And I was also able to help people get to a better place. I was shocked at people our age and older who didn't have life insurance. But the one thing we're all guaranteed is to die, right?
Yeah.
That's guaranteed. There's no if, ands, or but. It's not your car insurance, right? You may get into an accident, you may not. You may never get into an accident your entire life of owning that car. But the one thing you will do is die. So why not have it? Yeah. And it was staggering to me. And so that's what I did when I got out. I got into life insurance and I got into the financial services industry. And I was serving.
There now, right?
I am not. So I am still a steward. I still educate. I still educate myself by talking to professionals like yourself and reading books, reading books on retirement investing. I'll never forget my favorite book to this day is Paychecks and Playchecks. Yeah. That's my favorite because it talks about annuities. And so I'm still in it, but I don't serve anyone in that capacity anymore.
Well, and I think that's where it's like I really want us to talk about that a little bit, is our story and how life kind of evolves, right? So as I kind of went through my life, I told you about the Marine Corps. I also went into the music industry, worked for, and I don't think you know this, I used to work for R. Kelly for a while. And let's just say I know a lot of, I've been there. So I know a lot of things that are in the news are true. And then I got out of the music industry because I still wanted to change the world. I wanted to make a difference. That's why I was in the Marine Corps. That's why I was in music. And then we started this coffee shop. And we thought we were going to do that forever, right? This independent coffee shop and here's the funny thing. We've sold it. They had their first day reopening of Overflow reopened, I think yesterday. And so that coffee shop is still going. I am not the owner anymore. But then I moved into my world, into life insurance and annuities. And it was because of the impact it had on my life in the coffee shop years that I ended up here. Right? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
And so some of the things that we end up having us go through our journey ends up, I don't know, getting us to where we're at now. And now you moved from life insurance into all these other things. How did that transition happen? And what did that teach you about where you're at now? And we will get to retiring early.
We will. So I started once I transitioned to life insurance, I was able to rub shoulders with people with a lot more money than me and a lot smarter than me. And what I learned is real estate. So I dove into real estate and real estate investing. And I got connected on programs such as the Bigger Pockets program, and realizing that the benefits of owning real estate. And once I learned that, I realized that I need to own a piece of real estate. I need to get in the game because people with a lot more money than me are playing this game and winning. So I learned and I read. I bought some books and I started with real estate, which now I own a property and real estate and property management company. And that real estate and property management company is what facilitates the management of my rental portfolio. And then real estate later evolved into, one of the biggest things about real estate is the barrier to entry. It costs a lot of money to get into real estate, but it's so worth it, right? And so to come up with that 10%, 20% down payment, if you can only copy and paste that so many times. So I started looking into other businesses that didn't have such a high barrier to entry. And that's what led me to investing in ATMs and starting my investment company. And, what I never did is I never stretched myself thin. I always focused on mastering one business and then getting that business to a successful state, and then moving on to the next, but always growing and then developing and finding out what smarter people are doing. And so that's when I got involved in peer-to-peer lending and lending to people and getting into that and making money the way banks make money on our money, right? That's what I focused on. So I got into peer-to-peer lending. So all the different avenues. I started with one, and then as I sustained it, grew into the next. And I used the resources and the financial knowledge that I had gained to advance my career. So it didn't happen all at once. I didn't wake up one day and all these different things. I grew into each one of those, educating myself along the way.
Well, and again, I think about going to my story is, man, our barrier to entry to start the coffee shop, we went so backwards in this. It's really high. You have to come up with 150, 200,000 to start a brick and mortar business. And that's why a lot of businesses don't make it. And you have to have $1 billion before you even open a brick and mortar, almost, I feel like. And at some point we got to the place where we learned a lot, but we're like, is this bringing us joy? Is this still what I want to do? And I think that was a challenge. And also, man, we had a baby, or we're expecting, and we're like, is it legal to actually have a baby behind the bar and do all that? No.
No. Right.
Not do the things that we thought we could, And again, my wife and I, we've been doing business together for years. But when you have a child and you're a caretaker, things change, right? So your family dynamics change. And so as you've gone through yours, and one of the things I think I like, I really like, is you said a couple things that I think were very powerful. You said you learned, you studied, and you researched, right? A lot of people that I talk to don't like to read. They like to be told what to do, and they also don't like to study or any of that. And so I'm like, well, if you're gonna expect the results of something, you need to learn it yourself. And when I go through the process for my clients, I say, hey, learn this stuff. I want you to know how a policy operates, because the best way to then leverage it is knowing how it functions. And with 401ks, I don't know. Do you understand 401ks? I mean, I don't know people that do, but
so 401ks are a unique aspect. So let's go to the CARES Act. Let's go to 2020 a little bit. In the CARES Act that we just recently had, the CARES Act opened up the ability for anyone who experienced a COVID-19 related event to withdraw from their 401k. And so that opened up opportunity, not just for people who are suffering, because we want to empathize with those, but it also opened up an opportunity for people who want to invest and look at the stock market today, right? Had you experienced a COVID-19 related event and withdrawn some of that cash to get you through that COVID-19 event, if you had some extra, why not invest it? Why not invest it in something more that you have control of it? Although you and Amanda may feel about the brick and mortar business, you didn't love it. I will always tell someone, take a chance on yourself. Right.
I would say we did love it.
Right.
It just got to the point where we're like, all right, we also child and things change, right?
Right.
It was one of the best experiences I had, and also one of the most challenging.
And that's it. And that's the perfect, because your job, your employer, right? COVID-19 showed us our employers don't care about us, right? That's why the topic is how to never retire early, because your employer, you're a number, right? So we have to take a chance on ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to take an interest in our own future. There are a handful of companies, I could probably count on one hand, who still offer full-blown pensions. That was the big shift, right? They shifted from offering pensions to now a 401k with a match, because employers, companies, big corporations had realized, oh my God, people are living longer and we're still paying them. So even though in your pension, you're a liability, you've invested maybe 150,000 into this pension, but the company has to pay you until you die. And so even though you've invested 150, they've paid you in excess, because you just are living longer, $250,000. So that is why pensions have now gone away. So they put the responsibility of retiring on us. That was the big shift that no one paid attention to.
Well, and now what I'm seeing a lot of, and that is so true. And you're speaking my language as I look, and why I even started a whole life policy. My biggest investment was our business. It was my biggest risk. It was everything. And all right, so if I'm a business owner, how am I going to match myself? Right? That just doesn't even make sense. And so we wanted to build some stability and leverage. And so we started with our policies. And now as I talk to people, I ask them, what does retirement mean for you? And I will tell you, more times than not, people are like, yeah, I don't ever plan to retire. I plan to quit my job and do real estate. I plan to quit my job and start this business or do this or that. And I hear it all the time. I'm like, well, why don't you start that now? One of the funny things in this whole how to retire, or this FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Well, technically, we quit our day job when we got married and started our brick and mortar business. So technically, we retired early. That was nuts. I don't know what we were thinking, but we did. But we retired early, according to the FIRE movement. So now I'm here and I'm like, well, do I ever plan to quit? Do I ever plan to stop? Am I not? I mean, I'm never going to. I want to also continue to provide value. So how are you, let's say you're looking at your life at age 70. What do you want your life to look like then?
I want my life to look like I want to be a philanthropist. I want my life to be, I don't want to be rich. I never say I want to be rich. I want to be able to support the things and support the people that give me the most joy. Mm-hmm. So serving people and giving back. Bill and Melinda Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that foundation was started so that they can change the world. When Bill Gates walked away and stepped down from Microsoft, he kept his money, and him and his wife started the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they brought plumbing and potable a potable solution for people in Africa to be able to wash their hands and sanitize their hands and have an actual bathroom where they live. And so at 70 years old, I want to invest in things and businesses and people. And so, because what matters is, it doesn't matter what I want. It matters what I leave behind. People, what do you want? The quickest way to figure that out is, what do you want people to write on your tombstone? Yeah. Right. Marcus, the man that had a really big 401k. That's not what I want on my tombstone. Marcus, who provided Wi-Fi in a country that was completely decimated by war and terrorists, now have access to the internet. That's what I want to invest in.
And you mentioned something that I want to push on a little bit. You said you never want to be rich. What does, and I'm gonna go deeper on this. What does rich mean to you?
So rich means to me, rich means to me, I want to be happy and I don't want to punch someone's clock. If rich means me taking a school bus and converting it into a mobile home and spending my days with my family on the road, then that's rich to me, right? Am I happy? Do I enjoy what I'm doing? Do I enjoy where I'm at? Do I enjoy waking up with the sun in my face versus an alarm clock? It doesn't mean tons of money. It doesn't mean Mai Tais and fancy hotel stays. Rich means to me living the kind of life every single day the way I want to on my terms. And so that's what people in the FIRE movement have done and are doing. They're not necessarily millionaires, because the person that's rich has adapted and converted his lifestyle to live off of $2,000 a month. That's rich. He's rich, right? Because if he can save and invest and live off of 800 and save the rest, then he's rich. And that's what it means.
And that's why I wanted to push on a little more on that, is because really, rich is freedom to do what I want when I want. We have grandma's wealth wisdom. Wealth is not always money. As much as people want to like quantify everything by money, there's a lot of poor communities, financially poor, that have a wealth of community. And I think that wealth of community is lacking in our world today. Wealth of relationship and all of that. And so what I really want us to hear from this is, hey, what we really want to bring about is true. What is the definition of rich for you? And your definition of rich and wealth is different than somebody else's, right? Starting a brick and mortar coffee shop, that was a really great experience. And I felt, it was awesome. But at the same time, I'm like, I was depleting one area for another, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? Or sacrifice, right? We didn't have kids for several years because of the business. Right. And so I play games. Do you play games at all?
I do.
Borderlands. You know how in some of these games they make them addictive, and you level up each piece, and sometimes one piece goes up and another goes down.
Yep.
That's the way I think life is like.
Balance. And finding the balance.
Yeah, and the reality though is, you'll never find balance though. Does that make sense?
It can, yeah.
So when you're walking, you're never balanced when you're walking. You're shifting weight from one side to the other. Absolutely. And so movement in my thinking is movement towards something. You're moving back and forth. You're not balanced. It's just shifting of weight. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. But I think your environment also plays a role, mm-hmm. right? So walking on the beach in the sand is different from walking in snow or walking on concrete. So your environment affects your balance, right? Mm-hmm. So where you live or where you retire, mm-hmm. decide to retire early or live, has an impact on where that gauge. Man, I need to be strong in this. I need to have a bigger savings account because I live in a third world country. And although my cost of living is low, I need to have a high savings account because I may need to up and move all of a sudden. Yeah. Or shift the balance where, I don't need a lot of savings because I live in the Philippines and I can live off of $100 a week. So I don't need a lot of cash reserves, and my quality of life is high because the monetary value of my dollar goes a lot further here. So that's that constant shift. And you're right.
Well, and that's the fun part of this. This is all a game, really. When I look at this and as I grow my business, for me, why am I never going to retire early? Because I enjoy the game.
Yes.
And And why am I going to quit the game if I enjoy it?
You would quit the game because life may change, just like you
Yeah.
started a family.
Yep.
So, but how you get there, the goal never changes. How you get there does.
Yep.
And so how you and your family achieved that financial freedom, that changed, but the goal, the mission never did. And that's where we are today. That's where that's where your audience is at today, or striving for, is to get to that place. And so it started off as a coffee shop. Now we are in investing and financial services. Who knows?
Weird.
It is crazy, but it was necessary. Next thing you know, who knows? You and I may be Bitcoin aficionados here in the next, we may be Bitcoin experts, depending on how things go with Dogecoin and Bitcoin and all of these things changing all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that with our old business, our values were community building and ethical economics. Those were the values of our old coffee shop: community building and ethical economics.
I love that.
The reason that is because that was us. It was the coffee shop was a extension of what was here and then here. And so then that created that, and it manifested. So and it's still going on, which is really cool. And so then basically it's kind of like church discipleship. I created people that now move it on, and I don't even do anything there. But I'm still doing with this community building and ethical economics. It's just with life insurance, thinking about strategic of, if I do a life insurance contract on somebody and that person dies, like we talked about in the beginning, does that just change that whole line of people? It could totally change a generations, theoretically. And looking at specifically African-American culture and living on the south side of Chicago, I could see the haves and have-nots. And you wonder, how come the rich white people all have life insurance and the poor African Americans in the South Side have payday loan companies all around them?
Absolutely. I experienced the same thing. When I sold life insurance, I had a single mom she was a single mom. She was a nurse. She was so she was all around death. So when I discovered her and I was talking to her about life insurance policy, my selling point was getting her to realize that if something happens to her little girl is without anyone left.
Yep.
And so she bought the policy. A week later, she called me attempting to cancel that policy because she wanted a new car. She didn't need the new car. She wanted the new car. And so in that instance, I realized that she saw a greater value in the car versus leaving something behind for her own daughter. And she wasn't aware of her own mortality. That car, you can't turn that car over to your daughter.
Well, this is another thing I think about when it comes to this whole idea of retirement or future us. And thinking about savings, investing, all of that. How do you make sure you're taking care of future you? Because people, when they think about it, even their children, they're like, yeah, well, they'll deal with it themselves. But we steal from ourselves. And this is what I see with baby boomers. They're in a retirement crisis right now because they wanted the big cars, they wanted the big houses, they wanted everything, and they got it, right? But they have a lot of debt, to get that. And now they're in a place of, shoot, now what? How do you balance I want this with taking care of future you, right?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. So before I met you and Amanda, I used to tell people, you meet both those needs with life insurance and annuities. right? And so the life insurance is for them. That's their legacy. That's the future, right? Along with education of your children on how to handle that money. And then you develop your savings, your 401k, and your annuity. That's for you right now, today. Now, Bank on Yourself has changed that, right? Because now your life insurance can now become a part of your living today, right?
Yeah.
And so that is the shift. But real simple, what I look for is, what is my money currently doing, and what vehicle out there is beating inflation? Right? That's one place to start. There are a ton of different stuff.
Yep.
There's the rule of 72, right? The rule of 72. There's the 50, 80, 20 split, right? There's so many different avenues, but whatever avenue you go down, separate the two. What's for me is for me, right? This is this. For example, I have real estate. My children, my wife, my future wife may not want this building, right?
Yeah.
Too many horrible memories. We lived here, we grew up here, and now I'm gone. Why would she want something like that? So you have to realize that, does she want the building, or maybe does she want the money? And so I need to have that conversation and set that up in a way that, if she doesn't want the physical building, then what is the plan to sell this property, or liquidate this property, or provide access to this property? And that's where life insurance comes in, right? Life insurance can give the death benefit, but also give her the cash that she needs, and give me what the cash I need, because I'm living today and I need that money right now, but she still needs to be secured after I'm gone.
Well, and that's part of, I think about that whenever I talk to people with real estate, and they're like, yeah, I want to have this house paid off because that brings me freedom. I was like, do you want to have the house paid off, or the ability to pay it off at any time?
Right.
And oftentimes when you pass on a house, the kids don't want it anyway. They want cash. And you're like, well, yeah, but they really like it, or, it has memories. I'm like, it has memories for you. They're going to sell it.
Exactly.
It's going to cost more, actually. And so thinking about, again, the ability to pay off the house is a different question than just a house paid off, or rent or mortgage paid off, or whatever it is. Yeah, I think, again, thinking different and asking those questions internally of us and what do we want is a big deal. I think you're hitting on it so much. So
absolutely. And in your sessions, and what I used to do is I would try and get people to figure out, what is that number. So really quick, my second property was a duplex that I bought. That duplex cash flowed $800 a month. So I needed to realize, what is the number that I need to hit? Is it $4,500 a month? Is it $6,000 a month? If I know what my end number is, then I know how many rental properties I need. So after we have figured out ourselves, figured out what is the financial vehicle, then we need to figure out what is the number that I am trying to hit, so that I can work towards that. Because if I know where I'm ending up, I know how to get there, and I know what my goals are. So that makes the conversation.
You need to know the amount of properties and all that. And when I talk to people, I'm like, all right, you want this much money. How many properties does that take to get that? And they're like, well, I don't know, a lot. I'm like, well, what is that number? Because if you know that number, then you're going to be able, it's again, I think back to the military days. If I have a battle plan and I know where I'm going, it's more likely I'm going to get there. If I don't know where I'm going, well, I'll get there too. It just won't be wherever I'll get to there.
But that makes the job easier, right? If a client comes to you and they say, I want to have in cash value, if I want to have $50,000 in 10 years, then we can work to a policy to that, or $100,000 or $200,000. And I need that in 10 years. I'm going to need that money in 10 years. Then now we can do the illustrations to that. and we can work towards that. But that is the bulk of the work, right?
And I'll tell sometimes I'm like, dude, you know what you need to do? A policy's not going to do that for you. You need to go work. You need to go bring in some money.
Right.
Like if you want $1 billion in retirement, then go work, do something. And again, work doesn't mean working for the man or woman or whatever. It is creating maybe your own business. And if anybody thinks that being an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, that it's easy, man, I work more than when I actually had a desk job, right? Well, yes, this is a desk job, but when I worked, corporate, and so I think really it's knowing you're going to work really hard for that, but it's worth it,
Yeah, it is, and you're working for you. The long hours are for you. It's not someone else.
Yeah, and then I have learned, this is just the most recent story for us. We bought a house. We used our policy to do a down payment on our own primary residence. We were thinking about going into real estate. We did 20% with our policy, no more than that, and we have no PMI insurance. Right? It's awesome. We're paying that back. But we were like before, we're like, oh, once we pay this back, we're going to do more real estate. However, I had a flood in our basement a couple times.
No.
And it sucked. And I'm like, shoot, I don't want this headache. If I multiply the headaches by having more properties that I own, that could be another full-time job that I don't want. And so what I learned in that experience is I want to not own any properties, except for the one I live in. I want to be a private money lender. And so that's something that we're working towards now. But I was going through the experience of a flood that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to get down that road and hate it. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. There's no toilets. There's no tenants with life insurance.
Yeah. I mean, somebody else will have that problem. They just have to pay me for whatever they're dealing with. And so, but then some people, hey, that's their thing. They love it. And you need all of that, right? And you need somebody to open up a brick and mortar coffee shop and keep it going.
Right.
And I think that's the power of our world. Like we if we help each other in our own what we love, man, we could really make a difference. But we have to like also help each other up, right? That's why you're on the show, right?
True.
Anyway.
And that's the power of annuities and life insurance, right? If sometimes it's not just an income, right? It's if I can create this thing or this vehicle that produces $10,000 a month, and I hinted to it earlier, right? If you got $10,000 a month but could live on $2,000,
yep,
then you're rich,
yep,
right? Because you've built your life around not necessarily a minimalist mindset, but you've built your life in a way that if you need to pull back, you can. If you want to push forward, you can. But you can contract or you can relax as the economy and as your life needs. But you've created room for yourself with that policy.
Well, and as you grow your business too, like for us, again, I feel like, man, we're doing pretty well. The business is growing. I don't plan on moving anytime soon. At some point, it just seems like, man, what else am I going to? I'm not going to buy a lot of stuff. I'm probably more minimalist, and I wouldn't say frugal. People miss those kind of things. Right. I'm not going to buy a Lamborghini because that's not what wealth means to me.
You're not?
No. I still drive my mother-in-law's old beater car right now. I love it. I'm like, hey, it works, but we will have to buy one soon. And I think that sometimes, as I grow and as the business builds, really one of my goals is to have my son visit 6 of the 7 continents before he's 18. Experiences. Go to Africa for a month and ride an elephant. You know,
I love that.
I want to be able to do that and have the freedom to do that. And I think that means I'm going to retire early, maybe this year, but I'm still working.
Right. But you're working on the things that you want to do. And that's the new thing, right? Expats, expatriates, right? People are now considering, people are now considering leaving the United States, whether they want to give up their citizenship or not give up their citizenship, but living somewhere that is economically beneficial to them. So living in Africa, staying in Africa, spending time in Africa, or Colombia, or the Philippines, or Belize, staying somewhere where your dollar goes the most. There's a whole couple that I follow, and this gentleman talks about how little he spends living in the Philippines, and he's retired military, and he lives very well. He has a beautiful home. He has security guards. He has a chauffeur, and he spends nothing to live in the Philippines. So that is, again, how to never retire. He's doing what he wants to do, and he lives very comfortably doing it.
When we moved from Illinois to Cincinnati, and I will tell you, the cost of living is a lot better here. Just
Really?
making that change within states and knowing those kind of rules, again, learning and educating, we were like, well, okay, where do we go? And as we made that move, because we weren't tied to a brick and mortar business anymore, we made that shift. Now, will we leave Cincinnati? At one point, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I never thought I'd sell the coffee shop when we first started, right? But life is a journey, and I love, again, it's a journey and a game, and we're always growing and learning, right? What would you? And as you guys are joining, I know there's still a couple people here watching. Put your comments in there. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. I know I am. Probably talking way too much, but also hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are at, I think, over 500 subscribers. Not near as many as you have on your amazing channel, but we are going to catch up to you. You're
going to surpass me. I want you to surpass me.
We will get there. We are going to. I mean, we have fun doing these videos for sure. So what would you want to leave the audience with? Like, what is the mic drop moment that you just want to, like, mic drop and say, peace, I'm out?
The mic drop moment I would want to say is live your life on your terms, right? Don't let anyone dictate, tell you how to live your life, when to get up. Live life the way you want. So if you want to join or be a part of the FIRE movement and be on one end where you want $1 million in the bank, do it. If you want to live the other lifestyle where you want $10,000 a month coming in, but you only need to live off of 2, do it. But live it on your terms and let no one tell you what to do, how to live it. Take back control of your life. We have become a society that has been stuck on the benefits of government, right? Food stamps, Social Security, WIC, all these different programs are to keep you docile and to keep you stuck under the federal government's thumb. I would say use the tax law.
You could add that one in there. 401ks.
401ks. All of this to keep you under their thumb, right? So create the life that you never want to escape from and do it on your terms.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And be ready to, again, learn. If you're in the FIRE movement, learn and say, okay, and this is something I think about within the Wall Street world. So the Wall Street is growing, and we just did a podcast episode on this today, how the stock market really works. Totally check it out. Plug for that episode. So here's the funny thing. The market stocks they are way up, right? The S&P is at the highest it's ever been. However, baby boomers are in a really interesting situation. A lot of them are in a retirement challenge. So theoretically, you should ask ourselves, shouldn't they all be rich? If the market has done what it's done, shouldn't they all be millionaires? Logic should say yes, but that's not true. So the question to ask yourself, and what I think to ask ourselves is doing the same thing and expecting different results a good idea or a bad idea? And does that build the control and freedom that you want now and in the future? And for me, doing this whole life insurance thing, and I didn't mean to say whole life insurance, I meant your whole. But doing this has brought about freedom for me to do what I want when I want. And I know it's brought you freedom too. So with all of you guys, as you're listening to this, we want you to actually never retire early. I want you to get that out of your head. I want us to be living the life that God's called us to, and not to wait until we're 70 to do it, but start living that now. And you can start doing that every day, even if it starts at 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. You can start doing that now and start building the life you want now. Start building that strategy you want now. So with all that said, go check out Gentleman Styles podcast. He does a lot of lives, video interviews. He will be interviewing the amazing Mark Willis, I believe, tomorrow. And if you have not heard of Mark Willis and you've been listening to our channel, I don't know where you've been. But Mark leads Not Your Average Financial podcast. We are not average. I know that, Marcus, you are not average. And we also have a group, if you want to learn more about it, on, where is it at? It's a private little group that's in, what is that group called? If you go into, man, I'm going blank. You
talking about the website that he created?
Yeah, there's a website that he just did. It is Not Your Average Financial Community through what is that community group called? Do you remember? You know it.
I'm looking. I am in the group, and shame on me. I'm looking for it. What is
Mighty Networks, a Mighty Networks group called Not Your Average Financial Community. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to give you guys all a private invite into this group. And if you want to be a part of a tribe of people that are thinking about not retiring early, actually living the life they want now, join us. Right. I'm live in the events right now, so I can't really show you, but I'll put it in the chat. With all that, you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me, Marcus, and I'm excited to have you again real soon.
I'd love to.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you guys. Bye.
Bye.